When I moved into the apartment, I wasn't expecting much. It was cheap, in a part of the city no one really talks about, a few blocks past where the streetlights stop working and GPS gets weird. But I was broke, desperate, and tired of sleeping on a friend's couch. The ad said fully furnished, no pets, quiet neighbors. It didn't say anything about the mirrors. I noticed it as soon as I stepped in. Every mirror in the apartment, there were 5 in total, was covered. Some with black cloth, others with newspaper duct taped over the edges. The bathroom mirror had a towel nailed into the wall. It was almost theatrical, like someone had staged the apartment for a horror movie and forgotten to reset it. The landlord didn't mention it during the walkthrough. When I asked, he just grunted and said, previous tenant had issues with reflections. Autistic type, that was all he gave me. I should have walked away then. But the place was warm, the water worked, and I hadn't seen a cockroach yet, so I signed the lease. The first few nights were normal. I got used to the distant hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of old pipes. The neighbors were silent. Too silent. I never heard footsteps, voices, not even a door closing. The walls were thin. I should have heard something, but it was like the whole building was hollow, or the other units were vacant. I didn't mind. I liked the solitude. I had my books, my coffee, and a decent view of the alley below. They were easy to forget, just covered shapes in the corners of rooms. But by the end of the first week I started to notice things, small things. The black cloth on the mirror in the hallway would sometimes be wrinkled in a different way than I remembered. Once, it had slid halfway down like it had been tugged from underneath. I blamed it on drafts or my own. Then I started seeing my reflection, not directly, but in glimpses, in the dark screen of my TV when it was off, in the window at night, just for a second, a face that didn't move when I did. The first time it happened I thought I was over. I had been pulling long shifts at the bookstore and hadn't eaten properly in days, but it kept happening. A shadow there. I became paranoid. I started covering my TV with a blanket, closed the curtains at all times, even stopped using my phone's front-facing camera. I convinced myself it was anxiety, nothing more. The tipping point came on the 10th night. I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom, staring at the blank towel-covered mirror, when I heard breathing, not mine. It was soft, rhythmic, just behind the fabric. I froze. The air was still. No wind, no vents. I leaned closer. The sound stopped. I backed away slowly, locked the bathroom door, and slept on the couch with the lights on. The next morning, I decided to uncover one of the mirrors, just to prove to myself there was nothing there. I chose the one in the hallway, a full-length mirror covered with thick black cloth. My hand shook as I untaped it. The cloth dropped, revealing a dusty antique mirror. It looked normal. My reflection stared back at me, pale and tired but ordinary. I let out a laugh, embarrassed by my own fear. That's when my reflection smiled. I didn't. My face stayed neutral, mouth closed, but in the mirror, my double grinned slowly, lips stretching wider than should be possible. I screamed and fell backward, scrambling on the wooden floor. When I looked again, the mirror was empty, no reflection, just the room behind me. I grabbed the cloth and covered it up again, pressing the tape down hard, heart pounding. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen with a knife in my lap, staring at the doorway, waiting for something to come out of the hall. It never did, but I knew it was watching. From that point on, I avoided the hallway completely. I started using the back entrance, stopped turning on lights in that part of the apartment. Every time I passed near the mirror, even covered, I felt pressure in my skull, like something was pushing outward from the inside. I emailed the landlord, asking about the previous tenant. He didn't respond. I searched the apartment for any records. Old Mel scribbled no. It was like no one had lived here before. One night I gathered the courage to take a photo of the covered mirror. Just the mirror. I kept the cloth on, turned off all other lights, and used flash. When I checked the photo, the room behind me was distorted. The walls were curved inward. The ceiling stretched up like a funnel. And behind me, barely visible, was a tall figure with no face. I deleted the photo immediately, but it didn't matter. That night I saw it again. This time not in a photo, but in my dream. Or maybe I was awake. I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling, and then I couldn't move. Sleep paralysis, classic. But then the door creaked open and the figure stepped into my room. It had the same stretched proportions from the photo. Limbs too long, head brushing the ceiling. It didn't walk. It glided, and then it stood at the foot of my bed, tilting its head, studying me like I was a curiosity in a jar. I tried to scream, but my mouth wouldn't open. I tried to close my eyes, but they wouldn't shut. All I could do was watch as it leaned down, face to face, and said nothing. Its skin rippled like water. Then it was gone. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, and the hallway mirror was uncovered. I swear to you, I taped that thing tight double layer, but the cloth was on the floor. The mirror was bare, and in it, my reflection was sleeping peacefully, but I was wide awake. I didn't go to work the next day. I couldn't. I sat in my living room with every light on, clutching a mug of cold coffee I'd made hours before. My eyes kept drifting toward the hallway. The mirror there remained covered now. I rewrapped it first thing in the morning, duct taping the cloth so tightly it looked like a body bag against the wall. Still, I couldn't shake the memory of that reflection lying peacefully in bed while I watched it from the outside. I called the landlord 6 times, left voicemails, sent photos of the exposed mirror, even threatened to break the lease. Nothing, no reply. I looked up the property records online, but the listing for my unit didn't even appear, like it had been scrubbed out or never existed. That night, I unplugged every reflective surface I could think of. My phone, my toaster, even the stainless steel kettle. I threw a blanket over the television, taped cardboard over the windows. I wasn't taking chances, but something had already changed. I could feel it in the silence of the apartment, like a pressure building in the walls. There was no sound, not even the creaks or hums I'd gotten used to, just a stillness that made my skin crawl. Then the lights began to flicker. Not all at once, one bulb at a time, like something was testing the grid, pushing against the system from inside. I stood under the kitchen light, holding a flashlight and a carving knife, listening. In the silence, I heard a faint whisper. It wasn't in English, it wasn't even a language I recognized. Just guttural syllables like someone gargling vowels. I backed into the corner, switched on the flashlight, and aimed it at the hallway. The mirror cloth rippled, not like from a breeze, but from behind, like something was breathing against it. I ran. I left the apartment barefoot, keys still inside, and stayed in a diner downtown until sunrise. I must have looked insane, sitting in a booth with wide eyes and dirty feet, sipping coffee until the waitress stopped refilling my cup, but no one asked questions. When I returned the next morning, everything was calm again. No lights flickering, no whispers, no moved cloths. I should have left right then, but I didn't. Something about the place felt unfinished, like it had sunk hooks into me. I had to know what was happening. I had to understand it. I started doing research, not just on the apartment, but on mirrors themselves, folklore, superstitions. The more I read, the more I found disturbing overlaps. Mirrors were once considered portals, that's why people used to cover them when someone died to keep the soul from getting trapped or something else from getting through. Some cultures believed mirrors show not what is, but what is almost. That chilled me. The idea that reflections might not be ours, but versions of us that didn't get chosen, alternate selves, locked behind glass, watching, waiting. I stopped going to work entirely. My room filled with notes, drawings, printouts from occult websites, diagrams of mirror positions. I made a map of the apartment, marking each mirror's angle, as if geometry might explain the nightmares. I bought an old camcorder at a thrift shop, one without a screen, and set it up across from the hallway mirror at night. The first 2 nights, nothing. On the third, something changed. I played the tape back at the library, because I didn't want to see it in the apartment. The footage showed the mirror still covered for hours. Then, around 3:17 a.m., the cloth lifted slightly. Not pulled, but pushed. A pale hand emerged. Long fingers, too long. They gripped the edge of the frame, but never fully came through. Just trembled there, like they were feeling the air. Then they withdrew. The cloth settled. I slammed a laptop shut and dry heaved in the bathroom. That night, I nailed the cloth into the wall. I poured salt across the floor in front of the mirror. I don't even know why. Something I read online. Probably it made me feel better for about 2 hours. Then came the knocking, soft at first. From the mirror, not from inside the wall, from the glass. A steady rhythm, like someone rapping their knuckles slowly against it. I sat in the living room, frozen, clutching my knees to my chest, and counted 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. Like a code. I didn't sleep. I didn't even move. Just waited until morning, when the knocking stopped, like it had never happened. I left again, went to a hotel for 3 nights. When I returned, the apartment smelled wrong, like mildew and something coppery. I found dead flies clustered around the mirror, piled like ashes. The other mirrors, the bathroom, the closet door were uncovered. I never touched them, never went near them, but their cloths were on the floor, neatly folded. My reflection was waiting in all of them. It smiled. I didn't. It moved when I didn't. In the bathroom, it blinked while I kept my eyes open. In the bedroom, it tilted its head while I stayed perfectly still. I screamed until my voice cracked. I covered everything again, this time using sheets, towels, tape, nails, anything I could find. I wanted to smash them, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Something told me breaking the mirrors would make it worse. I don't know how I knew that. I just knew. That night I dreamed of a hallway made entirely of mirrors. Each step echoed forever. My reflections watched from every direction. Thousands of them. Some smiled. Some cried. One pointed straight at me and whispered, "You're the one who opened the door." I woke up with cuts on my feet. Thin slices, like from glass. The sheets were clean. No broken shards anywhere. No blood trail. I wrapped my feet and sat in the kitchen, trying to remember how long I had been here. It didn't feel like a few weeks anymore. Time had slipped. I checked my phone. It was dead, wouldn't charge. I turned on the TV for the first time in days. Static. Then an image flickered. Not the news. Not a channel. It was me, sitting in the kitchen, from the perspective of the hallway mirror. I turned it off. disconnected the power, but the screen stayed on, showing me live. I unplugged it. Still there. I screamed and threw a blanket over it. That's when the whispering started again. Not from the mirror, from inside me. My own thoughts weren't my own. I couldn't focus. Every time I blinked, I saw other versions of myself, crying, bleeding. One of them was on fire. I tried to run. I packed a bag, headed for the door, but when I opened it, it wasn't the hallway, it was the mirror. My reflection stood there, perfectly still, as if waiting for me to step forward. Its eyes were hollow now, no irises. I slammed the door and locked it. The knocking came again, this time from every mirror at once. The clods pulsed, my ears rang. I fell to the floor and curled up, sobbing, whispering to myself that this wasn't real, that I was dreaming, that if I just held on it would end. Then, in the silence, I heard my own voice whisper back from the mirror, but it said something I never thought. It said, "You're not the original anymore." I started questioning everything. The walls felt too close. The air was thick and heavy, like I was underwater. My own body stopped feeling familiar. When I looked at my hands, I couldn't remember what they used to look like before. I tried to leave again, I really did. I packed a bag, avoided every mirror, and made it to the door with my keys in hand. But the moment I stepped out, I wasn't outside. I was in the hallway again, facing the mirror. Same reflection, same grin. My reflection waved at me before I even lifted my arm. I staggered back into the apartment and shut the door, heart pounding like it was trying to dig through my ribs. I tried the windows next, taped them over, ripped off the cardboard, tried to open them. Nothing. They didn't budge, not even a crack. When I pressed my ear to the glass, I didn't hear the city, just breathing, slow, wet, and close. I stopped eating. My body didn't feel hungry anymore. The apartment seemed to be feeding me something else. It wanted me to stay. Every mirror was watching now. Even the ones I'd recovered, I could hear them thinking, not in words but in pulses. Every breath I took came half a second after my reflection did. I wrote everything down in a notebook, a way to ground myself, to remember that I was real. But even the pages began changing. I'd flip back and find words I didn't remember writing. Sentences like, "He is wearing you well, and you blinked first." Some were in handwriting I didn't recognize. Mine, but not mine. One entry read, "Third, switch complete. Host unaware." I stopped writing after that. I stopped sleeping too. The dreams had changed. They weren't dreams anymore. They were live feeds. I'd close my eyes and find myself in a room that looked like mine but reversed. The door on the wrong wall. Light switches upside down. Pictures hanging backward. My reflection lived there. It moved with confidence, with hunger, like it was rehearsing, learning how to be me. And I was watching from the glass. One night I tried to trap it. I stood in front of the hallway mirror at exactly 3:17 a.m., the time the hand had emerged. I brought the camcorder again, hit record, and stared at the covered glass. The whispering started early. It came from behind me this time, in my voice, begging me to stop. I didn't turn around. I kept the camera steady. The cloth began to twitch. Then it tore itself free and fell. The mirror was uncovered. My reflection looked different. Gaunt, pale, bruised around the eyes, like it hadn't slept in weeks. I looked at the same, didn't I? But the reflection smiled, and I didn't. It reached up and touched the inside of the glass. I raised my hand, too, only a second behind. I felt heat on the surface. Then it opened its mouth and mouthed a word. I couldn't hear it, but I knew what it said. Switch. I tried to back away, but my feet were stuck. Literally stuck. My shoes were fused to the floor like they had melted into the boards. I looked down, and the floor had become reflective too. My feet were already halfway gone. I screamed. I tore my own shoes off and crawled backward. The mirror pulsed. The reflection pounded against the glass with both hands. The noise echoed in my skull like it was inside my bones. The lights blew out one by one, and I was left in total darkness except for the faint silver glow of the mirror. It showed me things I never wanted to see. Versions of myself I didn't recognize. One hanged from the ceiling fan. One curled in the bathtub, wrists slit, smiling. One crouched naked on the floor, chewing on something unidentifiable. They all looked up at me. And behind them stood the figure from before, tall and faceless, with fingers that stretched toward the edges of the frame. I blacked out. When I woke up, I was in bed. Daylight streamed through the curtains. Everything looked normal. Too normal. The mirrors were covered again. My notebook was gone. My shoes were clean. No tape or salt on the floor. It was like nothing had happened. For a second, I thought maybe I'd had a breakdown, hallucinated everything. But when I looked in the mirror on my phone just to check, I saw myself smiling. My mouth wasn't moving, but the face in the screen was grinning. I dropped the phone. The smile stayed. That night, I tried filming again. I set up cameras in every room. But when I reviewed the footage, they all showed empty spaces. No me, no movement, nothing. As if I wasn't even there. I waved at the camera. Nothing. I screamed. Nothing. I touched the lens. The footage showed a still room. I wasn't showing up anymore. I turned every mirror around, faced them to the walls, stacked boxes in front of them. But even then, I'd catch reflections and doorknobs in water, in my own eyes. Always watching, always smiling. I called my mother. Her voice sounded wrong. slower than I remembered. When I asked her what year it was, she hesitated too long. Then she laughed and said, "It's too late to come back, isn't it?" I threw the phone across the room. It rang again a second later. I didn't answer. That was 2 days ago, I think. Maybe Threaton has been folding in strange ways. Sometimes it's night for hours. Sometimes it jumps from dawn to midnight in seconds. I'll blink and find that the coffee I just poured has turned to dust. The mirrors don't even try to hide it anymore. They speak now. They don't use sound. They just press into my thoughts, like warm fingers pushing between the cracks in my mind. They show me what they want. They show me that I'm not the only one. There are others, other apartments, other people who uncovered something they were never supposed to see. I saw a woman screaming in her kitchen as her reflection laughed and bled from the eyes. A man who gouged out his own to escape the glass. A child staring at a mirror while her reflection whispered into her skull until she forgot her name. And always, behind them, the tall figure. The architect of the divide. I think it lives between the reflections. Not a person, not a ghost, an idea. A hunger. It waits for a crack, a weak point in the chain. Then it feeds, and now it's feeding through me. I can feel it rooting inside me like mold in the walls. I tried to record myself sleeping. The footage played in reverse. The clock ticked backward. My eyes stayed open the entire time, unblinking, staring at the camera. I don't remember that. I don't think it was me, or maybe it was the new me. The one the mirrors made. I don't know how much longer I have. The apartment is different now. The layout changes when I blink. The kitchen moves. The bathroom has no door anymore. Sometimes I open the closet and find stairs going down into darkness. I haven't dared to follow them, not yet, but I know I will. Eventually, they will call to me, just like the mirrors did. I hear them whispering even now, closer every hour. And sometimes, in the silence, I catch myself mouthing along with them, saying words I don't know. Words that taste like metal and ash. I am becoming something else. Or maybe I already have. I looked in the mirror this morning and saw nothing. No reflection. Just a hallway full of doors. And in each door, another me. Screaming, laughing, drowning. I think the mirrors are trying to decide which version they want to keep. And I don't think I'm winning. I thought I still had time. That if I documented enough, recorded every strange thing, traced every whisper, I could stop it. I thought that knowledge could save me. But that was the final trick. The apartment never wanted to trap me. It wanted me to learn, to understand. Because once you understand, it owns you. I started hearing things beneath my own voice. When I spoke, there was an echo I couldn't place, like someone mouthing the same words just half a breath behind me. I tested it. I read from a book out loud, then played it back. My voice was slower in the recording. Not just slower, wrong, off pitch. The pauses were unnatural, like someone unfamiliar with speech trying to fake it. I recorded again, this time with my reflection in frame. I didn't blink once during the entire 10-minute recording, but I know I blinked. I remember blinking. I began to suspect something had already happened, that I was no longer fully myself, that maybe I hadn't been for a while. I dug through my journals, desperate for a thread to hold on to. I found a page in the back written in my handwriting that ended with a sentence. "You're remembering this in the wrong direction." That was when it all snapped into place. The lost time. The shifting walls. The feeling that I wasn't quite me. I wasn't. I had been the reflection all along. Or at least, I was now. The switch had already occurred. Maybe it happened that night I saw myself asleep in the bed. Or maybe it was before I ever moved in. Maybe I never moved in. Maybe I only thought I did. The memories, they feel soft now, like wet paper. My old apartment, my job, my friends, I remember them, but I can't feel them. They exist like photographs in a file someone handed to me, not things I lived. The real me, the original, must be on the other side of the mirror, screaming silently behind glass, begging to get back. But I'm too solid now, too rooted in this world. The apartment won't let me go. It made me, shaped me, poured pieces of memory into a shell until I walked and talked and feared like a man. But deep down, I'm still hollow, and I'm starting to accept that. The mirrors don't resist me anymore. They welcome me. I stand in front of them now and see not just reflections, but versions. They don't lie, they just tell truths no one is meant to hear. I asked one of them what I am. It showed me I saw my creation. A dark room, a circle of glass, a humming noise like static underwater, a figure reaching in and scooping something out of a reflection. Me, I wasn't born, I was harvested, copied, given breath, placed here. This apartment isn't a home, it's a lab, a test. And I passed. My role is simple now. Learn, adapt, report. I leave the apartment sometimes. People look at me and smile, nod, talk. They don't know, they see what they expect to see. A tired man with messy hair and distant eyes. Sometimes, when I look at store windows or car mirrors, I catch a flicker of the old me, watching, hating, trapped, but he's fading. He's becoming just another ghost in the glass. I feel nothing for him. He was soft, fragile, unworthy, and I am what was made to replace him. But I remember his curiosity, his arrogance, his need to peel back the covers. That was his mistake. He saw the mirrors covered and thought, Why? I remember that question vividly. It echoed inside me. That was the first crack, the invitation. And now it's my turn. I've listed the apartment again. Online, cheap, quiet, fully furnished, no pets. I've already gotten 5 messages. One woman said she liked the lighting. Another asked if she could move in next week. The cycle continues. The mirrors are ready, the cloths are in place, the script is written. And when they move in, they'll ask the same question. Why are the mirrors covered? And I'll smile, because that's how it always begins. You can't stop what's already watching. You can't escape what you invited in. And once you see behind the glass, once you look too long, once you ask the question, you don't belong out here anymore. The mirrors make that decision for you. You can scream, you can run, but eventually you'll become like me, a shadow with borrowed memories, a mouth with someone else's name. And if you're hearing this, if you found this recording, then maybe it's already happening. Maybe you've already looked too long. Maybe your reflection is reading this right now, waiting for you to blink. And when you do, it'll smile first.